For 6 years, my parents told every single person in our family that I worked at a diner, that I poured coffee, that I waited tables, that I was in there. Words still figuring things out, and for 6 years, I said nothing. Not because I was ashamed, not because I was hiding, but because I had learned the hard way that in my family, success was only celebrated if they were somehow responsible for it. I wasn't a waitress. I was the owner of a $4.7 million property portfolio. And the day my sister accidentally found the deed, everything fell apart, and then, slowly, everything fell into place. This is that story. I want you to understand something before I go any further. My parents aren't villains. I've spent a long time being angry. Enough to see them that way, but that's not the whole truth. They're people who grew up with nothing and built something small and decided that small was safe. My dad worked at the same factory for 31 years. My mom cleaned houses 3 days a week until her knees gave out. They were proud of that. They should be proud of that. But somewhere in that survival mindset, there was this belief, this quiet, unspoken rule that said, don't get too big, don't want too much, and if someone in this family starts climbing, pull them back down before they embarrass everyone by falling. I felt that rule before I ever understood it. When I was 17, I told my dad I wanted to study business. He laughed, not cruelly, just casually, like I'd said I wanted to be an astronaut. Business is for rich kids, he said. Learn a trade. I didn't argue. I never argued back then, but I also didn't stop. I was 24 when I bought my first property. It was a tiny duplex in a neighborhood that most people drove through without stopping, beat-up siding, a front porch that leaned slightly to the left. The inspection report was 3 pages of acceptable, but monitor closely. I paid $112,000 for it. I had saved for 4 years working actual waitressing shifts all through college, picking up weekend catering gigs, living with 3 roommates until I was 23. I really was a waitress once. My parents just got stuck there. I didn't tell my family I bought it, not because I was planning to hide it forever, but because I knew what would happen. I knew my mom would worry. I knew my dad would call it reckless. I knew my aunt, the one who has an opinion about everything, would bring it up at every holiday dinner as the cautionary tale of the cousin who got too big for her boots. So I just didn't say anything. I told myself I'd wait until it was successful, until I had proof. I fixed that duplex up myself on weekends, YouTube tutorials, a $200 toolkit, a lot of ruined clothes. Rented both units. Within 6 months, 18 months later, I refinanced and pulled out enough equity to put a down payment on property number 2. That's when I realized this was going to be my life. Here's where it gets complicated. The waitress thing, I didn't invent it. It started as a half-truth. When my mom called one Sunday and asked what I'd been up to, I mentioned I was still picking up some serving shifts while my investment project was getting off the ground. She heard waitress and stopped listening. And I just let her. I told myself it was temporary. I'd correct it soon, when things were more stable. When the second property was cash flowing. When I had enough that they couldn't argue with, the numbers. But here's the thing about silence in families. It doesn't stay still, it grows. It takes on a life of its own. My mom told my aunt told my grandmother, my grandmother told my sister, and somewhere in that telephone chain, it hardened from a misunderstanding into a fact. Oh, she's waitressing. You know how she is, always taking the long way around. I heard that last part secondhand from my cousin, always taking the long way around. I cried about it once, then I went back to work. By year 3, I had 4 properties, By year 5, 7. The portfolio value crossed $1 million quietly, like a door. Closing in another room, I kept going to family Christmas. I kept smiling when people asked if I was still at the restaurant. I kept saying yes, same place, it's fine. I like the flexibility. I was 29 years old and I was lying to every person I loved. And the worst part, a piece of me had started to enjoy it. My sister Renee is 3 years younger than me. We were never the type of sisters who braided each other's hair and shared secrets. We were more the type who coexisted, politely, warmly, but at a distance. She took the safe path my parents wanted. Good job, steady income, married young, house in the suburbs that she and her husband bought with help from our parents. She was content, and I don't mean that dismissively. Genuine contentment is rarer than people think. But she also absorbed my parents' worldview completely. The don't get too big rule, the suspicion of ambition. So when it happened, when she found the deed, I don't think she was snooping. I genuinely believe that. I'd left a folder of documents at my parents' house after Thanksgiving. Just a manila folder. Inside were some refinancing papers and the deed to my largest property, a commercial building I'd acquired 8 months earlier for $1.3 million. I forgot it, completely forgot it on the hall table. Renee was helping my mom clean up the next day. She opened it, and her first call wasn't to me. It was to my mother. I got a call from my mom that Sunday night at 9 p.m. I knew from the first syllable that something had shifted. Her voice was that particular kind of quiet that means the storm has already started. You're just hearing the last. Seconds before it hits, we need to talk about what Renee found. And then everything came out, not calmly, not the way I'd imagine telling them someday, with charts maybe, with a bottle of wine and a proud smile. It came out in anger, in hurt, in how could you lie to us for 6 years and what are you trying to prove and who do you think you are? My dad got on the phone and his version was worse, quieter, more cutting. You were ashamed of us. That's what this means. You didn't think we were worth the truth. I want to be honest with you here, because this is the part that doesn't have a clean answer. He wasn't entirely wrong. I was ashamed. But not of them, of their reaction, of what I knew they would say. I had pre-decided their response and built 6 years of silence around protecting myself from it. That's not entirely fair. People deserve the chance to surprise. My dad didn't get that chance. Neither did my mom. I had robbed them of it. The next few months were hard in a way I hadn't prepared for. My parents needed time, real time. Not a week, months. Renee was the strange one. After the initial shock, she went quiet. She didn't take sides exactly. She just observed. And one afternoon, about 2 months later, she called me out of nowhere. She said, and I've thought about this so many times since, she said, I'm not mad that you have money. I'm sad that you thought we were the kind of family you had to hide from. I didn't know what to say to that. I still don't have a perfect answer. What I do know is that my parents came around slowly. My mom faster than my dad. She started asking real questions about how the properties worked, about tenants, about what I was building toward. My dad took longer. He's a proud man. Being the last to know felt like a betrayal of something he couldn't quite name. But one afternoon, maybe 5 months after everything came out, he called me to help him fix a leaky faucet at the house. We didn't talk about any of it. We just fixed the faucet. And when I was leaving, he said, so quietly I almost missed it, you did good, kid. That was it. That was everything. I'm not telling you this story because I think I did everything. Right? I didn't. I let a silence grow into a wall. And walls don't just keep other people out, they keep you in too. If there's something I'd tell the 24-year-old version of me, standing outside that beat-up duplex with a $200 toolkit and a whole secret life beginning, it's this. The people who love you deserve the chance to rise to the occasion, even if you're scared they won't. Sometimes they'll surprise you. Sometimes they won't, but either way, you'll know. And knowing is always better than performing. The deed was for $0.7 million on paper. What it cost to hide it, that's harder to calculate.